Well, talking about housing, let's talk about that number that we've heard, 5,800. And that certainly sticks in the craw of a lot of people because people are saying that, goodness, Walnut Creek was way out ahead of that. We're building units near our BART station. We're way ahead. And why are we all of a sudden being forced to put up 5,800 units of housing? Could you address that and let us know how many of the housing units that are being built or in the pipeline make up some of that 5,800?
Yeah, well, first of all, we're not being singled out as much as it might seem that way, that there's a regional council of governments known as ABAG, and they get the projections for housing needs for the next 8-year cycle in the Bay Area and kind of assign those out through the various different Bay Area cities. So a number of cities from Los Gatos to Palo Alto, have seen their numbers double or triple from what they were the last housing cycle. And our number has increased as well. Where I would say Walnut Creek is in a better situation than a lot of other communities is we haven't had our hand in the sand on this issue, that we have been proactive for many years, dating back to my time on the Planning Commission to now on the City Council, to planning for housing in and around our BART station and downtown. And the beauty of that is that it puts housing near transit. It keeps the impacts of potential new growth and development out of our neighborhoods and out of the open space, and also doesn't add to congestion on Ignacio Valley Road. So as a result of those efforts that our planning staff and Planning Commission and City Council have done over a number of years, we're well positioned to meet that number without having to rezone or rechange any areas really substantially in our city. And I just add on to that too, that we are a creative city and council. We are committed to trying to do things differently than we've done in the past. I think if there's anything the pandemic has taught us, it's that we don't have to do things in business exactly the way we did before it. And in some ways we can do it better and more efficiently. Outdoor dining, I think, is a good example of that. But another is a site like the Toyota dealership. And when the owner of that property approached the city and said, hey, we're committed to remaining in the city with selling cars and servicing cars, but we'd also like to be more creative in terms of, and efficient in terms of how we use these 6 acres of land we owned, and are interested in considering adding housing to that site. Well, that's something that the City Council embraced conceptually. The devil's a little bit in the details. We have to see that the plans have to go through the commissions, but it's something that the city said, yes, we're saying we go through the gate and continue studying that, because those types of ideas can even add to the housing numbers that we're already in a good position to meet.
That's interesting, that car dealer issue, because people often talk about we have a model of Tesla and we have a little shop downtown, and you go in and look at 3 or 4 cars, but really you go on a computer. And people are saying that's the future, and certainly our Toyota dealership owner here is recognizing that, because the idea is out Main Street all the way out to Geary. We've got a number of car dealerships with lots of acres, and I think the future is going to be that those acres aren't going to be filled up with cars. They're going to be open for the development by those dealerships or the city or for whatever. And I like to say, and perhaps I'm giving a speech here, is we actually have 2 BART stations in Walnut Creek, and that those 2 transportation hubs, and mitigating the traffic, as you've told, for development out in that direction is certainly an important thing. The city looking at that, and
we do the North Downtown specific plan and then the West Downtown specific plan. And looking at the BART stations, both BART stations, as hubs of transit, we've noticed, or I've heard, that while BART ridership was certainly extremely down due to the pandemic, with rising gas prices and the feeling that the pandemic is maybe a little bit in abeyance at this point, that people are feeling safer to return to public transit. I myself rode BART home from the city last night and felt safe and secure. Everyone was mostly masked, and it was a pleasant experience.
That's great. Well, speaking of development and economic development, that's a really big thing in the city, and we've had Measure A years ago. We've had a number of things. We're having lots of development, and the economic development plans, as you talk about, for the city. I guess the issue is what we need is to bring in more businesses because we have lots of restaurants, we have lots of things, and they can't just feed people on the weekends when they come to shop and go to our wonderful leisure center. We need people during the day going to our restaurants, and therefore we need businesses and business people. And of course the concern is somebody works at one of the downtown retail stores, brings her bag or her lunch in a bag and doesn't necessarily eat downtown. So what's kind of the plan for the future to bring in, not housing now, we're talking about businesses and businesses that can employ our children, employ us, and get the city thriving from that perspective?
Well, economic development and COVID recovery is one of the council's 5 top priorities for this year. And we're making progress on that front. The outdoor dining that we've supported, the additional public art downtown, but also importantly, we've commissioned some important studies to see where we are on 2 key areas, on the retail front and the office front, because both of those economic sectors are changing dramatically and could potentially change even more in the future. So we want to really understand what the future of retail looks like and what the future of office looks like generally, but also specifically in Walnut Creek. And so guided by the results of those studies, which we should be receiving this spring, the city is committed to updating its economic development strategic plan, which was adopted in 2018, and fine-tuning that so that it reflects these new economic realities. You mentioned this auto sales, and that's a good example of a market that is changing from the old school sell on a big lot with a bunch of cars in storage versus the Tesla model. And we're all committed to making sure that our city codes and plans reflect the new reality and that we're being proactive in that front so that if we're approached by the next Tesla or a competitor of Tesla, that they're able to come into Walnut Creek and open business in a relatively short period of time.